The United States retains the capacity to launch a mid-scale military operation. However, the ability to do so while maintaining high-level strategic pressure on China is far from assured. Simultaneous engagement in a regional conflict and in deterrence efforts in the Indo-Pacific would stretch logistics, manpower, and munitions beyond sustainable limits. This challenge explains, in part, the measured American posture in both Ukraine and the Middle East. Despite political support and significant arms transfers, U.S. involvement has not extended into direct large-scale combat, a decision driven more by strategic calculation than by lack of will. In short, America's global reach remains unmatched, but the strain on its supporting structure is becoming increasingly evident. Independent government audits reveal growing concern about the health of U.S. military platforms. According to recent reviews, all 15 of the Army's major weapons systems, including main battle tanks and fifth-generation fighter jets, failed to meet readiness standards in the previous year. Aircraft availability is a major concern. The F-35 fighter fleet, for example, had an average mission-capable rate of just over half. Naval readiness faces similar challenges. Between fiscal years 2015 and 2019, two-thirds of scheduled maintenance for aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines was delayed. On average, these delays added more than 100 days to ship availability timelines. Personnel shortages compound these issues. Skilled technicians for maintenance, operation, and deployment are in short supply across multiple service branches. The situation reflects both the aging of key systems and a shortfall in recruitment and retention. Modern warfare consumes vast quantities of ammunition, and the U.S. stockpile is under strain. The Army had aimed to produce 100,000 rounds of 155mm artillery shells per month this year. As of mid-year, actual output was less than half that. For perspective, China's monthly production of these shells is reportedly between 250,000 and 500,000, roughly 5 to 10 times U.S. capacity. Patriot missile stockpiles, vital for air defense, are also running low. Current inventories stand at roughly 1/4 of projected wartime needs. This shortfall has been officially recognized as a strategic vulnerability. In a conflict requiring sustained high-volume firepower, such as one in East Asia, the U.S. would risk early depletion of its munitions unless production is dramatically increased. Recent strategic simulations conducted by leading U.S. think tanks have repeatedly tested the outcome of a hypothetical Taiwan conflict. Across more than 20 rounds of war games, none produced a decisive American victory without significant cost. In the most favorable scenarios, U.S. forces managed to defend Taiwan with assistance from regional allies. However, these outcomes required the sacrifice of multiple aircraft carriers, hundreds of fighter jets, and tens of thousands of personnel. The conclusion is sobering. A medium-scale war in the Western Pacific would be winnable only at a cost that risks political, economic, and military destabilization at home. Beyond military matters, the United States faces structural vulnerabilities in its industrial base. Since the 1970s, American manufacturing has undergone several waves of outsourcing, hollowing out its ability to support wartime production at scale. High technology and financial services now dominate the economy, but these sectors are not designed to sustain prolonged military operations. Even recent efforts to reshore key industries have encountered difficulties. Attempts to restart manufacturing lines face shortages of both equipment and skilled labor, many of which must now be sourced internationally. The consequence is strategic. Economic efficiency has come at the cost of resilience. U.S. naval power remains unmatched in theory, but practical availability is another matter. Although the Navy maintains 11 aircraft carriers on paper, only 5 are combat-ready at any given moment. The rest are undergoing maintenance or are not deployable in crisis situations. In some cases, the Indo-Pacific region has lacked even a single complete carrier strike group. Meanwhile, China's naval expansion has proceeded at a remarkable pace. In terms of tonnage launched annually, China's shipbuilding output now equals that of both the United States and the former Soviet Union during their Cold War peaks. The scale and speed of China's maritime buildup suggest a strategic intent not just to challenge local supremacy, but to reshape the balance of power at sea more broadly. Despite a defense budget exceeding $890 billion, the largest in the world, the American military struggles to convert this investment into immediately deployable combat power. Part of the problem lies in commitments. To maintain deterrence against China, the United States must keep its most advanced forces in the Indo-Pacific. But to intervene effectively elsewhere, it would have to redeploy those same assets. A choice that introduces unacceptable risk in the region left uncovered. Strategically, this is the classic overextension dilemma, guarding two fronts with one sword. The core concern is not just military defeat, but its consequences. A loss in a major conflict, particularly one involving China, could trigger a rapid erosion of America's global influence. Alliances would be the first casualty. Key partners in Asia, such as Japan, South Korea, India, and Australia, might seek alternative security arrangements or pivot toward neutrality. In Europe, calls for strategic autonomy would gain new urgency, further weakening transatlantic bonds. Public trust in U.S. guarantees could collapse, not only among allies but among rivals, reshaping the entire security architecture of multiple regions. The U.S. dollar's global role is underpinned by confidence in American stability and strategic supremacy. A significant military failure could undermine this perception. Already, U.S. federal debt has reached levels equivalent to nearly the entire gross domestic product. Projections suggest that by 2027, debt will exceed 106% of GDP. At present, global markets tolerate this due to faith in U.S. credibility. That credibility rests, in part, on the idea that America does not lose major wars. If that belief is shaken, central banks may begin diversifying away from the dollar, just as they moved away from gold decades ago. This shift would raise borrowing costs sharply, potentially destabilizing Wall Street and undermining the financial system. A military setback could also produce domestic fallout. Veterans returning from conflict might struggle to find employment, while governments may divert social welfare budgets to patch defense gaps. Political polarization, already intense, could deepen. Some observers fear a slide toward state-level fragmentation, with partisan divides between blue and red states hardening into institutional separation. Under severe stress, a unified national response to crisis could become difficult to maintain. Meanwhile, China's approach appears to favor strategic patience. With a large population, robust industrial base, and expanding shipbuilding capacity, Beijing may prefer to avoid conflict while steadily enhancing its position. In the past decade, China has built a navy totaling 2.5 million tons. If it continues at this pace, its maritime forces could match the U.S. in aggregate strength within 1 or 2 decades. Once parity is achieved, American carrier deployments in the Asia-Pacific will lose much of their deterrent value. In this context, Beijing's calculus is simple: time is on its side. The longer a conflict is delayed, the more favorable the balance becomes. The United States retains immense military and economic power, but it now faces growing constraints on how, and where, that power can be used. A medium-sized war may still be winnable, but at a cost the nation may be unwilling or unable to bear. The risk lies not in America's inability to fight, but in the profound consequences of losing. In today's world, a single miscalculation could do more than damage reputations. It could undermine the pillars of American global leadership.